morning, everybody. Hello, my name is Nicola Rylett-Jones, and I'm here having a wonderful conversation with three amazing women to celebrate International Women's Day, which is this coming Friday. We're having this conversation a little bit earlier, and we thought it'd be wonderful to spend some time celebrating wonderful women in the business world. Now, I know a lot of women, and I could have chosen a lot of people, but these three are pretty special. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second after we just talk a little bit about why International Women's Day is really important. I run a business book club, as many of you know. It's called Inspirational Business Book Club. If you'd like to come along, it's completely free. Have a look. But the reason I mention it is this last month we've just read Equal Power by Jo Swinson, and she talks in it about a world where everything is equal between the genders. And imagine that. Imagine a gender equal world. That'd be fantastic. A world free from bias, stereotypes, discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable and inclusive. And I think that's a world that we should be valuing and we should be celebrating. And we have to do our little bit to make sure we collectively come together to celebrate that. Now, that's what this year is all about with International Women's Day. It's about inspiring inclusion. So we're here to include you in our conversation about women that achieve amazing things. We want to raise awareness about the discrimination happening in this gender area and the drive to get gender parity. So let's start talking to these wonderful ladies. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So Joy, first of all, a little sentence about who you are and why you might be here speaking to me today. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. A gorgeous good morning. And thank you so much, Nicola, for inviting me. I am super excited. Of course, I know the incredible work that you do. And of course, we've had the opportunity of working together. So this is just incredible that you're doing this for International Women's Day. So my name is Joy Ogeh-Hutfield, and I am a mindset transformation coach, amongst other things. I also have two businesses. I have Joy Transformation Coaching, where majority of my clients are women, actually. So they're entrepreneurs, they're leaders, and it's about really helping them to harness the right mindset for success. So I use a holistic approach to make sure that they're really grounded and really understanding that in everything that they do as women, they are incredibly good enough. I also run, I'm the founder of an international leadership academy. And that academy seeks to develop and raise purpose-driven leaders and visionaries who would lead with vision, integrity, and purpose. So amongst that, I'm an author and a speaker as well. So, but super looking forward to the conversation with you.
Wonderful. I don't know how you have the time to fit it all in, to be honest, because I also know you've got a number of children and a husband that's doing Ironman races and things like that, and you are the organizer of all family things. So yeah, an absolute dreamboat of woman in an absolute amazing, powerful position that's doing everything. You actually show us it can be done. Let's move on. Jill, come on, tell us who you are and why you're here today having this conversation with us.
Hello, Nicola. Thank you so much for asking me to join you today. I was just thinking then, how do I compete with Joy? I think we've all had our own individual journeys, haven't we? I have an entrepreneurial background, and drawing on that, for the last 16 years, I've been involved in supporting others in their startup journey with businesses as a business angel investor. We are private individuals who support businesses through the difficult early growth stages. Business angel investing does not, borrowing your word, Nicola, does not have gender parity. 86% of business angels are male, and almost 80% of business angel funding goes to all male business teams. So female-led businesses are missing out on that early stage finance. In the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to co-found the Women Angel of Wales Syndicate, which is part of a movement to address these inequalities and to support women as investors and as founders in the entrepreneurial context.
Oh, and it's amazing to be in that group. Yeah, it's amazing to be in that group with you, Jill. And as you say, actually, there's a whole sort of story behind why that money goes to men from men. And one of them is that actually women don't ask which is maybe something that we can all recognise within ourselves. So thank you very much, Jill. And last but not least, and Sioned, maybe I can ask you to also take us into our first question. So introduce yourself if you don't mind, and let me know a little bit about why you're here, but also maybe you can be the first one to share the most proud moment or the experience that you've had that you feel you're proud of about being in business and being in the working environment that you're in.
Yeah, no problem. Bore da, everyone. An absolute pleasure to be here sharing the screen with these wonderful women. Can't believe I'm last because I now have to try and compete with what you shared.
No, I'm going to say, actually, we don't compete. Women shouldn't compete. Come on now, girls. We know that.
We support.
We support. Yeah, we support. We lift up. Yes. Come on.
An absolute privilege. So thanks, Nicola, for asking me to join this morning. I'm Sioned Williams Owen. I work for Swim Wales, the national governing body for aquatic sports in Wales. My role is Head of Aquatics and Inclusion. So in a nutshell, I'm trying to get more people across Wales actively swimming, playing water polo, diving, artistic, you name it. We just want everyone to be aquatically active. I've been with the organisation now for 2 years and it's been an absolute pleasure. It's a fantastic sport to work in, especially when we've got a 60-40 gender split with female dominating male. But obviously it has its other challenges where we see females dropping out of the sport. So yeah, again, just thank you for allowing me to come and share my experiences today. So the first question, moments of sharing my experience and moments I'm proud of. If I'm honest with you, I found this to be quite hard because I think we just take it for granted. We just kind of, it's life, you kind of take through. But I was reflecting last night and actually being asked to join this panel was definitely, will definitely be a highlight. I've worked in sport for a very, very long time. And I have to say my experience has been mostly positive. I've had a series of male line managers, I've had a series of female line managers, and it's all been really, really positive. Even when we have a male, I've had a male line managing me, they've always been really supportive in kind of developing my career, making sure that I'm mentored in a way to be able to kind of take on the role that I've got today. And that's what I'm now striving to do, is take what I've learned and share it with more people. Because education is power, and without sharing our knowledge, we won't get very far. But yeah, this morning talking.
What a wonderful positive way to start. Jill, could you keep us in this positive mode? I want us to just focus on a little bit of positive to start with. We're going to get into some of the more challenging situations that I'm sure Sioned hasn't experienced, but maybe some people in this conversation have. But so keep us on that positive journey, Jill. But give us your proud moment of being a woman in business.
I think, again, I agree. It's a difficult question because it is our own individual experience. There have been highs and lows along the way with any sort of business. But I think, for me, I'm coming back to the Women Angel of Wales Syndicate, because I think one of the difficult things is I've been involved in the business angel community for a number of years. And as an individual, I could see the inequalities, the gender disparity. But there's very little I could do as an individual. And it's just been so exciting, the journey over the last couple of years, to have had the opportunity to bring this amazing group of women together, like-minded women who also want to support business in Wales and to support other women. We are very much, it's not a hierarchical organisation. We as investors are there to support founders. We're all working together with the same purpose. And it's so tremendously exciting, coming back to the word support again, to be working with other women who want to achieve the same means. And I think a lot of that comes back to the visibility, because when I didn't realise that all these other women were out there. And until we were all connected up, there wasn't the opportunity to make these changes. So proudest moment being part of this movement to change the face of support for entrepreneurial ventures, I would say.
Oh, that's a snippet in its own right there, Jill. I think that'll be cut out and put somewhere. That's fantastic. Okay, Joy, come on. Let's. You must have many stories, so pick us your favourite.
Do you know, I also pondered on this. It was like, oh, okay, how do you really kind of answer this? Because you are spot on. As women, we do so many things and we do it so well, but we never almost give ourselves that recognition or to kind of almost have that space to sit and go, hang on a minute, I'm quite good at that actually. Do you know what I mean? Or that is a moment for me. So it did take me a while, but I came up with a couple, and I had to dig deep. I'm thinking, what is it? And for me, it came to my, in 2009, I organized a conference. It was an incredible conference called the Power of Change Conference at the Copthorne in Cardiff. And this was the first time. And I could remember really being so driven as a woman in business, because it was a bit of anger and drive, because I just felt that businesses needed to do more. And at that time, 2009, it's a long time, we had diversity. I was one of the pioneering figures in equality and diversity, and we had entrepreneurship, and we had personal development. Well, I was kind of connected, but I felt that businesses were disconnected from all three. And I really was wanting them to kind of see that connection, that as thought leaders and businesses, they needed to bring into their sphere of influence, how they connect entrepreneurship to diversity, to personal development. And so the conference, The Power of Change, managed to bring these thought leaders together, and how businesses can begin to inspire their communities in these times of change. So for me, reflecting back, that was a real proud moment for me in business, to be able to see that need of linking businesses and their communities and coming together and having that conversation. So so thank you so much for that question, because I've forgotten all about that. Well, not forgotten, but it wasn't something I was thinking about, but it really brought that to the fore. So thank you so much for that question, to kind of help me as a woman, not to just go where it's done, but to see the impact that I was able to have as a woman in business at that time.
I mean, Jill, Joy mentions there, and we've been talking beforehand on a number of subjects. Joy mentioned there about the change she could see she needed to start on, and of course you mentioned 2009, many sort of a good few years ago now, coming on to nearly 20, actually 19 years. It's a long time. And Jill, in your introduction, you mentioned you've been in the SME, the business world, helping startups, etc., for many years. Have you noticed any shifts or improvements in the landscape? The gender equality or the opportunities for women within business throughout that time, through your career?
I think I haven't been involved in the corporate world. I'm involved in this sort of entrepreneurial, the startup world, the women who may be working alone in their own businesses. So obviously within that time there have been legislative changes which will have helped employees, but I think the biggest change has been a cultural shift, and I think that's happened fairly rapidly over the last few years. There's been more of a cultural shift to recognise the value of diversity, and to recognise that there isn't a one size fits all, and that to recognise the worth of those who are working outside the standard working practices. And that's the angle that I'm coming from: the small businesses, the independents, the people starting up their own ventures in whatever sector, and they may not have the protection of employee status. They may be responsible for their own employees. So I think that's the biggest change I've seen, is there's a cultural change in the way women are perceived and business owners are perceived.
Joe, you're nodding madly and you're saying yes, yes, yes. Jump on that sort of comment. And again, what have you noticed, or shifts and improvements have you noticed in that time since you did that conference back in 2009?
I mean, I definitely, agree with Jill in terms of, what she's saying. I mean, for me, I came out of that, and of course, my business and my journey has really kind of moved and evolved over those years. And as a woman who's also passionate about supporting other women, and I just found that, you know, that need just grew more and more in terms of, you know, if we want to make a difference, yeah, we can talk about our male allies, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later on, and we can talk about, you know, where we stand as women. But I found it incredibly important that as women, we also came together, you know, to be able to elevate one another and to lift one another up. And that was important because that is our own responsibility. It's okay for what other people can do for us, but what can we do for ourselves? And for me, I took on that challenge because I went on to, over the years, in the period of what, 7 years, I developed a women empowerment program that I was able to tour, not just in the United Kingdom, but actually internationally. And it was called Be a Woman of Purpose. And that really was about helping women get the confidence, because women are incredibly super awesome and super talented. But of course, we come from a place where sometimes either they don't recognize that, or women feel they're not worth it, or imposter syndrome creeps in. And what do we do about that? You know, it's not their cause. I mean, I've suffered imposter syndrome, and I'm sure many of us in one way or the other have been through that journey ourselves. So for me, it was really important to create these events and these platforms, bringing women together to say, well, listen, you're not alone. You know, you're not alone in this. And together, you know, in our different, whether being an entrepreneur or being a leader, we can take on these and begin to make significant progress in ourselves, developing us, but also in the process, developing other women in our own sphere of influence.
I think that's really important. I love that point. I mentioned the book by Jo Swinson, and in reading that book, I'm going to sort of encompass lots of what you've all said so far, in the sense that I read the first bit. It was written in 2017, and I read the first few chapters, and I thought, this is old hat. I know this. I've not experienced it. A bit like Shanath, you were saying earlier, not really happened to me. My life's been a little bit sort of, you know, easy in this regard. I've not had such bias or lack of support from my line managers, whether they be female or male. And as you go through the book, it opens up into other chapters, particular disturbing one on violence towards women, etc. And I found as I got through the book, I ended up thinking to myself, this is not about a power struggle between men and women, because if that is the case, then men have to give something up, and that's not easy for anybody to do, whether you're, you know, whatever your gender is. Actually, this is about us giving confidence to women. If we give confidence to women, then actually that helps everybody to be in their purpose mode, as you're saying, Joy, as I would say, living to their full potential. Okay, so I think, you know, I'm going to ask you about the advice you'd give to other women who aspire to start their own business and lead in this sort of male-dominated industrial world we're in at the moment. Actually, that's going to change over the next few years, because obviously the workforce is going to become more female orientated. But one of the things I think we could do just generally for all the women we know, our younger siblings, our mothers, our friends, our business colleagues, our associates, is just give them more confidence to be themselves, confidence to do what they think they absolutely should be doing in life, and just go for it, as you said. Shanath, tell me about the advice you would give, to moving to on that point, you would give to other women who are aspiring to be in this world, take on their own business or take on a leadership role, and maybe they're in an industry that's male dominated, or actually there's a lot of men around them. What would you say they should be doing to get sort of that parity that we're talking about today and be more included in the conversation?
I think the first one is just put yourself out your comfort zone. It's not going to be comfortable, and you're going to feel uncomfortable a lot of the time. But by doing that and just having that self-belief, you'll go further than you've ever imagined. I think building strong connections is always a good one as well. If you've got another female leader or companion, someone that you can relate to and kind of brings that reality a step closer, I think that's always a good thing to have during the good and the bad times, because it's always good to have a friend to lean on. And I think the third point, and certainly one I need to practice what I preach, is celebrate your successes. Actually take time to reflect on your achievements, either small are absolutely huge, both in your kind of your work life, but also personal. I think we forget as women how many things we juggle throughout our different life stages, all the pressures we get around this is how you should be doing life rather than how do you want to do life. So yeah, just taking a step back as well and celebrating all the amazing things that we achieve.
Well, that absolutely could, yeah, exactly, Joy, absolutely. And that's what today is all about, right? International, well, Wednesday and Friday will all be about. It's International Women's Day, and it is that celebration of everything that women have done, can do, and will do in the future. I think that's wonderfully well said. I like that whole being comfortable is a really important piece, isn't it? I'm again reading another book at the moment about how to get, do things you don't actually want to do and get over procrastination. And one of the things they talk about is the fact that we've all become, actually, it's a really interesting point, we've all become more comfortable in life. Okay, the ease of the supermarket shop, things being delivered to us 24/7. Then actually, it's meant that actually we're not used to being uncomfortable. We're finding it more difficult to actually sort of be in that uncomfortable state. So yeah, that's a really good point. Okay. Joy, your view, what advice would you give to other women who are taking on leadership roles, maybe from your perspective, in that male-dominated sort of world?
I would say, I mean, I have a quote. This is one of my quotes that I tend to use as a tool of really empowering women. And it says, when you learn to define yourself, the world will bow down to your definition. And as women, this is absolutely key, because, leaving ourselves exposed in terms of waiting for someone to tell us how great we are, how awesome we are, that's really where it leaves room, because then it's almost, I see it, you are taking life's leftovers. But when you step up and you define and say, this is who I am, and start to define you, it's that same mirror. I call it the mirror effect. And that's the mirror that the world will use to also define you. So your words are powerful. How you see yourself, how you view yourself is really the parameters in which you give the world to see you from that perspective. So for me, that's really important. One of the things that I also work with in terms with my coachees is helping them to have a compelling vision. And whether you are in business, whether you are a housewife, whether you are a mother, it really doesn't matter who you are. But it's really important to have that vision. What does it look like? What does that vision of success look like for you? So even in the ups and downs, you can always go back and go, oh, hang on a minute, I'm off track. Or actually, I'm in line with that. So for me, vision always plays that key, because that brings you to that why. As businesswomen, all of you, in the different sphere of influences that you have, we've had times when we feel that, people we look down upon, or we're not given our true worth, or we're not seen in the way that we want to be seen. But this is where we understand why we are in business, why we are parents, why, you are organizing the book club, why you are an angel investor. That really keeps us grounded. And I think that even in a male-dominated atmosphere, that keeps us strong, because we understand why we're there. Nobody's doing us a favor. We are there because we have incredible value to add. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks. And Jill, maybe you could sort of just lean on that a little bit and talk a bit more about that, but also then talk about, how we might sort of be able to have that, the role that men play, maybe have a think about that as well, and linking into that role we're saying about the advocates of working with us.
Of course, and it's very interesting what Joy said about having that strength to define yourself and remain true to your own vision and where you want to go, because it's very important that we have the support of other women to do that, because it's not easy to do. Research has found that in a male-dominated context, women adopt one of 3 strategies. They may partner with a man to establish their own legitimacy. They may adopt masculine characteristics or masculine behaviours, which in order to fit in, or they may adopt ultra feminine characteristics and behaviours to differentiate themselves, all of which are moving away from who they actually are and being able to define themselves and having the confidence to define themselves in that context. And I think that that does flow nicely into the next question you mentioned, Nicola, which is the way that men can help that is to try to, I think it is improving, certainly. Men can understand that women are experiencing the business world in a different way than they experience it themselves. At different stages of life, Sioned mentioned, women may have different caring responsibilities, other things going on, and they impact the way that their careers pan out. I've had a portfolio career. And I think the more that men recognise that not everyone experiences the world in the same way, the easier it'll be for women to be themselves in that context.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, isn't it? And it's interesting. For the first time last year, I went to a number of International Women's Day events, and we had a couple of gentlemen in the audiences or in the groups, and I said, great, fantastic, why are there not more of you here? And it was really interesting that the majority of people going to International Women's Day events were female or women. And you think, well, but no, we need our men to play this advocate part for us as well. Sioned, tell me, because obviously you've worked in equality for some time and inclusion, so tell me about the role that you think men can play in advocating, put my teeth in, for this gender equality and how they can support us in leadership positions as women.
I think you've already touched on it. I think education is key. I think they need to understand some of the challenges that we do face in order to help us overcome those challenges. It would be interesting, Nicola, if you could view back how many male listeners you have to this webinar/podcast at the end, to kind of see, actually, again, is it females listening to what we already know, or is it males trying to educate? As I said, I've had a very positive journey, and all the male leaders, colleagues have been really supportive. And they've been supportive because they've genuinely taken an interest in kind of my vision and where do I want to get, and help me, or provide me with those kind of building blocks to where I want to get to. I've always felt valued in kind of what I'm saying, how I contribute to the work. But I know it's not the same, and I know the higher up the ladder you go, the more difficult it does get. So I think it's just, it's keep on building connections where you know you'll get support. And if you don't feel like someone's being supportive, either you call them out or you move to somewhere where you will be valued, because we're all valued people. And I think if you're not appreciated, then you shouldn't waste your time.
I think I'm going to build on something you said there, Sioned, if I may, because I think you said something really interesting, and I'm going to link it to another point. And you said there about hearing and supporting a woman's voice, and actually that's the big thing. I think men, if a man is in a leadership position, actually asking and commenting on and amplifying what a woman has said in a meeting so that it's heard, I actually think is a really good thing, a really strong thing that men can do for women in their teams, particularly if that woman is a little bit shyer or maybe brand new into a leadership role. They might not have, as Joy's mentioned, found their voice yet. And so that might be a little bit more difficult. So if you can ask that question as a man, and you can support the woman members of your team by saying, oh, that's a really good point, thank you ever so much. What does everybody else think about what Sioned said just a moment ago? Yeah. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing, I think, actually, the one thing that we sort of just slightly related, but I'm going to move us on to Joy to ask Joy about something in a second. But just before I do, I think actually this comes to the fore when men are, if they're lucky enough to have children, have baby girls. and have daughters, because the minute that a man has a daughter, I'm thinking of Sinead's boss Fergus. Fergus has got 4 daughters, hasn't he? I think it is, and he is such an advocate of women and female leaders. And actually, you can tell that goes right from him having his daughters all the way through his wife and his business colleagues and his leaders at work. You know, he's very empowering of women, isn't he? And I think actually men who have daughters actually are far more positive around this kind of stuff, because they see it, right? For what Jill was saying earlier, they see some of the challenges that their daughters face, don't they? But Joy, with that sort of leading on from that, tell me, you know, you have got position now, you've got influence, you've been empowering women and men in small businesses across the globe for many years. How do you leverage your position to help the next generation of women coming through the ranks in the community or the industry that you work in?
Well, in different ways, because just kind of just going back a little bit in terms of that conversation of men and how they help women and you know, advocate. And one of the things I just wanted to add, I know I'm just digressing a little.
No, it's fine.
Is that I feel that over the years, you know, and especially International Women's Day, we use the language of we're looking for the male allies. I mean, and they're wonderful, you know, to help us and things like that. But I feel that we need to kind of move beyond that conversation, because it's not so much as the men helping, they're there. But I think that it's really more around perception and how men see us as women. And that narrative needs to, in a sense, change, because we're not helpless, and I'm not saying we are, but the equality comes from seeing that added value. So the conversations in the boardroom is, we're not an add-on, we're an absolute necessity. There is an incompleteness when there is a lack of female voice, full stop. To me, I don't even see anything, because it's not complete. So really, women being in their boards, women being really prominent, means that there is a real holistic approach to how businesses are addressing EDI in their organization. It's not a favor. It's not, oh, we'll just bring a, you know, no, it's beyond that. It's an absolute necessity, because it will only impact, we want to talk bottom line, it will impact their profit, it will impact their bottom line, because we are in a strong position in terms of women. So having women voices heard and recognized can only add value to different businesses and different organizations. So I've got to say that, because it was something that was burning at me. So I do. It was burning at me. So anyway, right, back to my question. Back to my question. So I think most of the things in terms of using my position to leverage is really working towards breaking this glass ceiling. As a coach, I mean, I wrote, my last book was titled How to Master True Self-Confidence. And in the book, I addressed a number of things. I mean, it was probably geared towards women, but it was a number of things in terms of that position and the whole saying of, you know, fake it till you make it. And I had to really dispel that myth, because it's not about faking it until you make it. It's about developing your authentic self. And that is where the leverage comes in, because when you are sure about who you are as a woman, you know, then you are able to understand the power that you have, the influence, and how you use that to better your world and to better your environment. So the way that I leverage my influence is obviously, you know, the writing books, going back to developing women empowerment programs as well. I do have a wonderful male allies, which is brilliant. So they're incredibly supportive. And one of the things, whether they come through my coaching programs, is that they will always leave with a sense of knowing that we are in this together. I know it's a cliche, but we really are in this together, men, women, you know, regardless, because the unity, that unified force, is really what will ultimately bring the change we all need. So it's not one camp or the other. So for me, so I use that in my different speaking engagements to be able to put that message across, so that we know that we're really coming from that united front. And I believe that's the only way forward to be able to close this gender disparity gap and the rest of it.
What I love about that is, bringing it back to my original point, is that if we try and say to men it's about equal power, they see that as a two-dimensional balancing trick. It does mean that actually they think they have to give something up for us to get something. And what I liked about that point, Joy, is that it's about bringing everybody together to actually get stronger, sort of stronger potential and everybody thriving, really, not just one or the other, but everybody together. I think that's really important. Okay, let's just move. I'm going to just ask that question again. Sioned, did you want to say anything about leveraging your position particularly? Because I know, obviously, as I say, you work in an industry, a sports industry that is just dominantly male, but actually where we are in Swim Wales, we've got more females involved in it. Anything you wanted to mention about that and how you leverage your position to help?
Yeah, again, I think we're in a very privileged position. It's not often that you see females not dominating, but kind of more females on the board. The same with the senior leadership team. We've got more, it's an equal 50-50 split. So yeah, I think we're in a very privileged position. However, if I look at my partner, for example, or husband, I should now say, I've been married 6 months, who works in the banking industry, it's definitely very much different to what it looks like in sport. I certainly know that the majority of his colleagues and line managers have been male. So although I'm very privileged to be in sport, and I think we've seen change quicker than other industries, it's definitely important to recognise that there's so much more to do, and that we as a collective need to keep pushing this, because we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, we certainly. Yeah, no, that's fine. And Jill, I know I didn't ask you specifically to prep this, but I'm sure you're doing lots of things to leverage your position and influence this. So tell us a little bit about the things that you're doing in your position to help.
Well, as I said, it's the gender disparity in the investment world, which is both sides of the investment dyad, really. It's the investors and the founders who are receiving finance. It's helping both sides. The investor side, as Joy says, bringing that female perspective to support a business, even if it's an all-male team, to have a mixed group of investors brings a much stronger perspective to enable the company to grow. So women need to be there on both sides. It's something I've been aware of for a long time, and as I mentioned earlier, I've been very fortunate to be part of this movement of the growing number of female syndicates. I also believe it's very important to understand what's happening and where change is needed. So when I had the opportunity, I've gone back to studying, and I'm actually studying at Cardiff Business School, on the gender disparity in angel investing and why that women are so underrepresented. Because I do think we need that deep understanding of where the problems are lying. So on two fronts, on a practical and an academic level, I'm addressing this problem and we're hoping for change. And I think another thing that Joy said is not to set boundaries. I think if we set ourselves up as women just doing this for women, we're creating new boundaries. And as a syndicate, we openly work with others. Although we're female focused, it doesn't have to be an all-female team that we support. As long as there's a woman in a senior position, we'll happily look at other ventures. We work with male investors, we collaborate with other groups, from other sectors. So I think that collaboration is important, not just working in silos to address the issue, but really working across a range of sectors, industries, to bring everybody together.
I love that. What a wonderful, what a lovely point, collaboration. I've got some very, very nice points of summary that I'm going to come through in a second. And I'll just get my last question ready for you so you can get your brains thinking whilst I sum up. So I'll ask you the last question and then I'll do a little bit of a sum up and then I'll come back to you if I may, ladies. Okay, so my final question is, as we celebrate International Women's Day, what message would you like to share with women around the world who are striving to achieve their goals and make their mark in their respective fields. So I'll let you have a little ponder for a second. Let me just do a little bit of sum up. So basically, we've heard some amazing stories, and actually we are a very privileged group, as Sioned said, with regards to actually not experiencing too much negativity around being a woman in the workplace, and that's testament to where we've come from many years, I'm sure. But Joy mentioned the point of confidence and women being really much more confident. Sioned's mentioned the fact that we have to put ourselves sometimes in uncomfortable positions and get used to being uncomfortable, because that's how we grow, that's how we develop, that's how we push ourselves to be better. We talked about making sure our voices are heard. And Jill mentioned the power of education, whether that's be looking and investigating where the changes are happening and where the changes and the gaps are not happening, so we can have more influence in the right place. And I think finally we talked about, and Joy, I'm not going to remember the quote, but I'll make sure I put it in a summary underneath the video for everybody. But we talked about coming together, collaborating, being one, not just being women or being men and having male allies and being a female in the workplace. We are together as one, and we need to understand that every single voice has value, whether that be male or female, whether that be young or old, whether that be black or white, or any other colour in the rainbow that you want to put in between. Every value is every person's voice has value and brings value to our conversation. So I think that point about collaboration and togetherness is a really nice way of summing up our conversation today. But I am going to ask you my final question. And Sioned, I'm going to start with yourself, okay? As we celebrate International Women's Day, what message would you like to share with the women around the world who are striving to achieve their goals and actually, more importantly, making a bit of a mark and an impact in their respective fields?
I think similar to what I said earlier, just believe in yourself. Don't be scared to put yourself out of your comfort zone. It's okay to take risks, and we actually have more reward by taking those risks. Sometimes they'll pay off, sometimes they won't, but regardless of the outcome, you'll always learn something. And I think a big one for me is, although you might not recognize it yourself, we are all role models in this space, regardless of what we do. If we are in a senior leadership position, or if we volunteer for our hockey club, I'm talking about my own experiences here, but yeah, we're role models in everything that we do, and we will one day probably inspire someone without even knowing. So just keep doing what we're doing.
I think you underestimate already your value to others, Sioned. I'm sure you've already inspired people that you probably don't even know about. But yes, okay, wonderful, thank you. And Jill, over to you. What message would you like to share with women out there?
Well, I was absolutely agree with Sioned to have confidence in your own ability to achieve what you want to achieve. But I would just like to add the rider that although we are all taught to believe that we can do whatever we want with opportunity, hard work, we can all be what we want to be, inevitably some people will be facing barriers that are beyond their control. So to avoid self-blame, if it doesn't happen straight away, don't blame yourself. It may be something that you can't control. So find another way around it, but don't feel like a failure. Don't blame yourself if things don't go straightforwardly in the first instance. So confidence in your own ability, but be aware that you are subject to the context in which you're working.
That's lovely. I like that. Don't blame yourself. Don't judge. That's very nice. And Joy, your final message to women around the world striving to achieve their goal.
Oh, thank you. So for me, one of the biggest one would be invest in yourself, because that is your greatest gift. No one can take that away from you. And it's about what you feed your mind. That's what makes you think whether you're good enough or not good enough. So you've got to invest in yourself. I mean, as a coach myself, I mean, I've got 3 coaches. People go, oh my God, why has she got 3 coaches? And incredibly enough, when you talk about Oprah Winfrey, she's got about 2 or 3 coaches, and people were all amazed. And that's because, yes, there might be incredible women, but at the end of the day, we also have to take charge, of our own destiny and where we're going. And nothing is too big to be invested in ourselves, and that's really, really key. So that message, it's a gift. And then secondly, I would say, learn to validate yourself from within. And that comes again with that whole being in the coaching arena or investing in yourself, because you don't have to be seeking others, to validate you. It was incredible this, when we started, we kind of, I wouldn't say we struggled, I can speak for myself, almost struggled, because thinking, what good thing have I done? What am I proud of? Can you see? But really, if we learning to validate, we're not bragging. It's a fact. We did these things. You know what I mean? We are awesome. There's not wrong with that. So rather than having people tell us, we can learn to tell ourselves and validate ourselves, from within. And I think that really helps stand us in good stead, especially in business. It's not an easy platform to be in business. So we need to be able to stand up and articulate what we're all about. And then the last thing I would say is, and I know you touched on it, Sioned, you talked about this, which is about, celebrating your authentic self. And I know, Nicola, I wanted to end with this because I know that's your thing. You love that word. So, as women, as we come into, International Women's Day, is that celebrating that authentic self. And authenticity, it's a hard word, mind. It's not an easy thing. It's hard, but that's the space we need to bring ourselves to, celebrating that. Definitely would enable us to be able to be who we are destined to be, adding incredible value to ourselves and to others in our sphere of influence.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm not going to say much more than those three things, because I think they're lovely. And I will just add on top of all of them by saying one thing, and that the piece of advice I would give a person trying to make their impact in their world, or trying to get their goals to be achieved in their world, is to stop comparing yourself to others. Because in this world, that is definitely a thief of joy. Because as you compare, you are in effect looking at the positive and negatives of what somebody else has done versus what you've done. And if you are, look at who I'm surrounding myself with today. And we started off the conversation about, oh gosh, how do I compete with that intro, and how do I do this? Right? Actually, I don't need to compete with any of you, because I'm glad you're all in my stable of contacts and friends and colleagues, because actually, if I'd started to compare myself to anybody in this group or anybody in my network, because I surround myself with brilliant people that are doing amazing things and generally in a space that I'm not in, then I'd always come off second best, which is no good for confidence. As we talked about before, we need to be confident. And it's no good for that whole sort of blaming yourself for not doing enough or not being the best that you could be. So my advice, on top of the things that you've all said, which I think are fantastic, invest in yourself, don't blame yourself or judge yourself, be confident, is actually don't compare yourself to others. Because as Joy said, and others have said today, we're all different, we're all unique, we all add different value. And actually, it's when you get to that point, your authentic self, that you realise what it is you're brilliant at, that you bring to the table, and you can unleash the power then at that point. Yeah. Well, I don't know about anybody else that's listening. I hope that our audience on Friday enjoyed this conversation as much as I've enjoyed it. I just want to say thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. I've really, really enjoyed our time. I might just make this an annual thing. Maybe I need to encourage you to, shall we do this? Shall we do that? Shall we come and speak next year? And shall we talk about actually how much we've changed and what we've done? That's your task. All right, start writing them down now, ladies. I want to know exactly what you've done. Let's get a big spreadsheet together between us, and we'll come back same time next year and talk about all the things we've done that have impacted that gender parity, that inclusion that we started talking about today. So listeners or viewers, I think, because I think people are going to be watching us on the video, thank you ever so much, Sioned, Jill, Joy. Thank you for taking the time this morning to talk to me and to our audience. And for those of you that are watching, thank you for being part of this conversation, because by listening, as Sioned said earlier, hopefully we've got some chaps listening, you can help by giving women in your life confidence. For other ladies out there, you can collaborate with us and you can give your group of people confidence as well. So thank you ever so much, everybody. Until next time, I'll say goodbye. Thanks ever so much. Bye-bye.